All right, everybody. Good morning. It is Friday, the 23rd of September. And today, why is it so important to get your blood tests and your blood work done? And how could it benefit you knowing a little bit more about it? Um, well, there's a few things, and this today we're going to go through some, some some of the people that I'm helping and some examples, and I'm gonna throw down some logic. Once again, this is Anthony Stewart. This is Food for Thought, and on this channel we question everything they say. And today, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a normal guy that's done a shitload of research into health, wellness, studying to be a nutritionist. Although we'll get into that a little later, I'm kind of conflicted in my studying because a lot of what I'm being taught is actually 100% wrong. Now, that's for another day. Today, it's about blood work and things that are. I just want to show you some light or shed some light on some things that might. We want to be proactive in our health. We don't want to be reactive. So our and I'm not dogging doctors and physicians here. This is just some logic thrown in to make your own decision on what you should do. Now, I'm not saying not listen to the doctors, but what I will present to you is this case. Okay? Doctors have a lot of patience. Doctors have a lot of, they're on a tight time schedule about what they're able to do. When you are just going in for a checkup, obviously the guidelines are there in a blood panel, in a blood work, in a blood test, from the lab. They have, a certain parameters of high and low, and doctors, will do a test, a blood. Well, you should be getting your blood tested about once a year, depending on how you're feeling and what's going on. Then kind of go from there. But so anyway, back to the doctors. The doctors have 10, 15 minutes to look at your health. You have 24/7 for your whole life to be responsible for your health. So it's in your best interest to really understand. Sometimes it's superficially what's outside is not what's going on inside, and blood work is a great way to look what's going on inside. And also, if you know what you're looking for, you can get ahead of infection, disease, or some kind of problem. And the doctors are there in the parameters, and usually from what I've seen, they react to a marker or something like a beacon beeping out at them. So it's not their fault. They have a lot to do, and they are great with handling. If you have a good doctor, they obviously care about you. This is just something that you are your own best ally and your best defense for your health. And the more you know about your body and your well-being, the better, arguably. So, okay, first of all, I would recommend you getting your blood tested every year. Like that's just a good way to start. I know it's different in the United States. In Canada, we have a system. Most doctors will be perfectly happy with that. Now, some of them have they kind of they're into the position where you don't need it. My statement is basically, why not? It's the idea of knowing what your hormone levels are, what your testosterone levels are, what your estrogen levels are, what your vitamin D, now especially what your serum vitamin D levels are, possibly your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, your fasting insulin, which we'll get into in a second, which is probably the single most important from all the stuff that I've ever learned or studied. Fasting insulin is 100% the most important test you can do because it puts all the other parameters of your blood, of your glucose, of your blood sugar in check. You can tell what's going on. Anyway, they don't do that very often. It's its own test. It's called a HOMA-IR test. And basically it gives you a marker because there's no way of showing you how insulin resistant you are. But your fasting insulin is a good indication of how much insulin is going in your body, and how, the higher the number, probably the more, insulin resistant you are, and you want to be insulin sensitive. So the idea of probably health across the board, and what I'm finding in all walks, it doesn't matter which side of the page, side of the fence, whatever side of the road you're on, keep the insulin down is a good thing. You want your fasting insulin as low as possible. Don't wait till you're diabetic and you're right off the mountain. And there's ways to show this, okay? So anyway, that's something that's kind of, that I have problems with, is that some doctors don't want to do the testing because they think you don't need it. Now, do you need it? Maybe not. But, is it good to know? Yes, because if a marker is out of range, it's good to know where you stand. Now, this comes to my next point. Why you should be consistent with your blood tests is because doctors are human beings and you are always about you, okay? So they might miss something. Now, you knowing what the blood work is can get a good baseline about how your body works. Now, just because something is out of the range doesn't make it mean it's bad or good. Looking at the average person's health is how they get those ranges. So their ranges are the average person, and we know the average person now is probably suffering with a little bit of metabolic syndrome, overweight, obese. So what they've done is they just increase the goalposts to fit what is normal. Now, testosterone levels have come down. So the reference ranges, like for prescribing testosterone, like hormone replacement therapies and stuff, that changes. The pharmaceutical push for hypertension medication, that's changed. The blood pressure parameters have changed. The cholesterol levels have changed. That's just kind of funny to me how all of a sudden the human race is, arguably just less. You want to prescribe more. So it's, there's both sides of the argument there, that you could argue saying like we were tightening up our parameters to be more efficient. Yet you could argue to say that, they tightened up the parameters to be able to prescribe more drugs. Now, where they get the reference ranges and what college and what society, that's to be said. So there's always a debate. Now, this stuff is not set in stone. Everything I've ever said was like, holy shit, look at my blood. Doctor says you're fine and you're good. Now we're going to give my first example. A friend of mine who I'm sort of like on the sidelines giving some advice, and it was my advice to tell her to go to get her blood work done, her full blood work done, all the stuff. So blood counts, red blood cells, white blood cells, obviously liver, kidney function, hormones, vitamin status, all these things, like the full thing. And what I said was get a fasting insulin. You might have to pay for it, which turns out to be pretty expensive, but we and to give her the start of it, she is, I would say, health conscious, no problems, like not overweight, doesn't eat anything too drastic this way, always tries to be sort of a whole food. She eats carbs and she eats grains, but there's no signs of any problems with it. And she I would say, on the average, is a healthy diet. So she exercises, and I would say on the if you looked at the average population, she'd be on the better side of health, right? So she got her blood tested, and we went through it all, and the doctor had his ideas, and sure, and then we went through everything. Everything sounded pretty good. I mean, there are some, I explained to her some workings, which are, it's not always just because this is that you do this. There are some things that are going on. Our bodies are very complicating, but yet they're very simple at what's going on. So your blood can indicate something that's going on in your digestion. Your digestion can really affect inflammation, and inflammation can affect nutrient sensing and nutrient absorption. So just because you're deficient or you're suboptimal in certain things, you might have to look deeper into just plugging in mineral here. So it's a little bit deeper. So anyway, we went through the blood work. Most of it was pretty good. Her triglycerides were a little high. Her HDL was fairly decent, but her LDL was okay. And that's the bad cholesterol. But yet my shot across the bow was the high triglycerides. Now, They were normal, but just. Now, triglycerides increase when you eat a high carbohydrate diet. I know it sounds funny. Triglycerides are fat in your blood, but what happens is a process called de novo lipogenesis, which means new fat is created because the glucose is your cells. This is very basic. Your cells are stuffed with energy, so what does it do? It's going to store. Okay. Now, if it's busy running around trying to put it into places, that is a sign of high fat in your blood. You probably are starting a fatty liver. Now, her liver enzymes were good, but the fatty liver signs happen way before your liver starts to show the effects. So that gave a flag to me, even though the doctor would have said nothing about it because it doesn't beacon a marker. Now, that triglyceride thing, when you're dealing with metabolic syndrome, so metabolic syndrome is 3 of the 5 things: hypertension, high fasting glucose, a low HDL, a high triglyceride, and I guess it would be obesity, like overweight, right? So, already not so high HDL and low and a higher triglycerides, that's screaming out, that's 2/5 of metabolic syndrome. Now, her fasting glucose was 5.2, which under 5.7 is good. You're good until you're 5.7. Now it's pre-diabetic. So that is on the higher range of the fasting glucose. So that screams a little bit more like, it's okay, but, something to be watched. Now, the only way to get this in check is to have constant blood tests and understand how your glucose is going. If it's going up, we have to worry about it. If it's going down, you're doing some good things, right? So the same thing with the triglycerides. Now you got a baseline. So this is where I'm looking at it going, okay, I can tell your diet is high carbohydrate, maybe higher than most, maybe a little bit of alcohol, and you're not in danger. But these are warning shots. These are signs now. And I know she's about my age, so now you have to start watching it. That is the time to be aware of it. Understand what insulin resistance is, and that's going to lead me to the next thing. Now, she did get her fasting insulin done, which was the last thing we talked about, and that's when I went, whoa. Because had she not got her fasting insulin done, this is a moot point. This is just an observation and just a watch. Now, her fasting insulin was 15. That shows signs of insulin resistance and specifically not being insulin sensitive because the insulin is very high in her blood. Now, everything that I've learned and all the research, Ben Bickman's lab out of Brigham Young University, I've read his book, Why We Get Sick, Jason Fung, all these doctors scream insulin should be checked because anything over 5 is something to be concerned about. She was 15. You want to be between 0 or 1. It was 0, you'd be probably dead. 1 and 5, okay? So now her fasting insulin, that is something to be concerned about. Because if the next time she gets her blood tested, that fasting insulin is increased, all those other markers are increased, we now know that there is some issues going on. And high insulin resistance leads to a lot of other hormonal functions, and that can lead to thyroid issues, that can lead to, PCOS, that can lead to menopausal problems, estrogen problems. Now, if you're not getting enough fat in your diet and your glucose is high, now that's leading with glycation, advanced like there's a whole list of things, and it's all stemmed by the insulin. So it's something to really watch. Now, luckily, she's very health conscious and she's concerned about it, so she's going to learn about it, which is all we can do. It's not a holy shit, you're going to die, but it's something to be said. Now, the next thing is this is my family, this is my mother, okay? I'm going to try and get this quick because I don't want to keep you all day, but she was trying to, she's been anemic and she couldn't take 10 steps without taking a breath. So she went to the doctor prescribed iron pills, and I was like, that's kind of not really going to fix anything because, just taking a bunch, you might as well be sucking on a cast iron frying pan. So we looked at her bloods, her red blood cells were a little bit odd, so B vitamins. That signals B vitamins to me. And then her digestion. She was inflamed. So we went on a keto diet without mentioning keto. I said eat vegetables and a lot of meat. You need to eat red meat because of the iron. You need heme iron. That's iron from blood to blood, so to speak. And, we gave her liver, which is higher in copper, which would balance out her copper and her iron. And lo and behold, in about 6 weeks, she wasn't anemic anymore. But she's on the verge. 6 months later, her anemia came back, but she wasn't symptomatic because her body was still, able to function. So we caught it before it was back. And basically, my mom took her foot off the gas with the red meat and the liver, put the red meat and the liver back in. Sure enough, she's not anemic, but she's on that threshold. Now, she isn't epileptic. She's a smoker. She has some iron issues. She has some absorption issues. She doesn't store iron very well. So she has to be on the iron all the time. Red meat is very good and very necessary for my mom. And so the liver and the red meat, for her context, it seems to be working fine. Now, her cholesterol, her HDL was awesome, her triglycerides were awesome, but her LDL was through the roof. Now, that was something to be concerned about because it's really, really high. Now, everything I know about LDL, it's getting a little bit noisy in the space where people, it doesn't matter. This isn't the marker. Yes, it's not a marker for metabolic syndrome, but my mom's was so high that I was like, this is probably abnormally high, so we should keep an eye on it. The next time she got her blood tested, we noticed her GGT, which is a liver enzyme. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name right now. Gamma glutamate transferase or whatever was extremely high. That's a sign of oxidative stress and inflammation. High LDL with a high GGT. I did some digging around. That could indicate some heart problems. That could indicate some early stages of atherosclerotic heart problems, and your body fighting an oxidative stress situation. So we did something that was crazy, and most doctors won't do this, but it will be done by God. We asked the doctor for a calcium score, like a coronary arterial calcium test, which is an Agatston test. They give you a score. They can actually see. It's an MRI done on your heart, on the arteries, and it can actually detect the plaquing. Very informative, very good to do. Why aren't we getting it done, everybody, once a year or once every 10 years or once every 15 years, just to see? You can see the disease. You can see it, but yet it's not practiced. Anyway, because my mom's situation, the doctor, kudos to him, signed off on it. She went and got it done. This is where it happens. Like, all of a sudden, the doctor called her, and I didn't get a chance to speak with her fully about what her score was, but 85% risk factor, and what that is generally is they put it all like her age, which is pretty, she's older, right? So that's a bad tick. She's a smoker. She's got super high LDL cholesterol. So in the eyes of the health space, that's like ding, 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 ding. Anyway, now, the idea, we know now that there is a little bit of, there's plaquing. So now, what is the answer? Lifestyle, health. The only thing you can do now is treat it the best you can by what you put in your body. I don't believe going on she's not hypertensive, so she doesn't have high blood pressure. So that kind of medication is going on. Now, her option might be a statin, and maybe it may be time for it. But the problem is with statins is it doesn't differentiate from LDL. It just stops LDL production. It might be damaged LDL. So the next step is to get a particle size measurement of her LDL cholesterol. If she has got small, dense, oxidized LDL that are damaged, which I'm tending to think that might be because of the high GGT, and you see what I'm going here. So oxidative stress might be, now is it damage causing by the smoking, or is her body healing? So now we have to be on top of it to get a baseline, to see what's happening with the progression, the inflammation, and the oxidative stress if it's going up. Now, you see what I'm saying here? The doctor wouldn't have even done the calcium score. She just didn't want a statin, and the doctor was like, okay, so it's not his fault. He's only got 15 minutes to handle my mom's case. She's got her whole life. So that's what I want to say. I don't want to keep you too long, but you want to be proactive in your health, understanding how your body works before the disease comes is arguably the best thing to do, because you can catch it. You can catch it before your doctor even sees it. But unfortunately, the way the system works is it's not 24/7 in your favor. You are. So that's all I'm going to say today, guys. If you need help understanding blood work, comment below and let me know if you've had any experiences about, blood testing or missed, or, some things that have happened with your blood testing. If you need me to take a look at them, I would be happy to. It's another opinion, and I'm pretty versed now in understanding what goes on, for the most part, and getting another opinion is never a bad idea. I would like to think that I know what I'm talking about now, and if you need help catering a diet or some advice on tweaking your diet, maybe looking for some stuff that you might have missed, by all means, comment below, give me an email. I'm here to help. Everybody, stay strong.